Hey everybody, it's Jillian with JillyJuice.com. So I just ordered my first book because I gave it away to somebody and I'll let them have it. So I have two copies of my first book that's out. So I have the Exposing the Lies, Candida Weaponized Fungus Mainstreaming Mutancy, and then I have the Jilly Juice Protocol. So you're going to get basically two separate recipes that you can compare the two and mix and match the salt if you want. But the Exposing the Lies has real detail on how you would actually administer the protocol. I've forgotten about it because I've been really far removed from the old way because I've been trying to evolve. And when you try to evolve, you forget kind of everything that you put in. I haven't read my book in a while, but I'm reading it going like, oh my God. Like, here's some of the stuff in here that I forgot I put in here. Okay, so I do talk about in the introduction about how this was first introduced. And then talk about my childhood a little bit. Not super detail. But I say that, let's see. I had an interesting childhood due to malnutrition, coming from a war-torn country at the end of the Vietnam War, fraught with bucking the system, rebelling, questioning, and managing out-of-control emotions, which did get me into trouble here and there. During that time of adolescent and young adult self-exploration, a roommate introduced a seminar series program based in San Francisco. So I don't go too much into my what I've been talking about lately, but I do give you sort of like an idea that I had some pretty interesting goings-on as a kid. And then I say, antibiotic lifestyle. Your lifespan is controlled. Remember how I talked about that your life now, as it stands, is like a phone that just got recharged and it says 100% battery life? As you use your phone, you use the battery life dwindling down until eventually you have to go and plug the phone back into the charging station. Okay, so I really give you kind of a visual on your battery, your life, okay? And I talk about Candida and PubMed and cell regeneration and all the different detoxes and apple cider vinegars, all that stuff, cannabis, colloidal silver. I mean, I really just slam the holistic industry. Then I say exercise not needed or required during this protocol. I talk about veterinarian antibiotic practices. B12 shots circumvent the immune system. I talk about methylation and DNA methylation. Okay, and then I actually have the Jilly Juice recipe in here. Okay, which also has then the 24-hour ferment, though it's a different recipe than the latest from my evolution of the Jilly Juice protocol. Okay, so this has a different recipe than this. The only difference really is the salt and then 1 cup versus 2 cups of cabbage, okay? Or 2 cups versus 1 cup of cabbage. And now it's 1 cup of cabbage. What else do I put in here? I talk about taking the protocol in this book. So I talk about taking the protocol, choosing your jars, cabbage, kale, salt. So a lot of it's a little bit redundant, but not really. So about mold and yeast, how to correct mistakes. Okay, botulism, that's kind of, it's in the book now. And then implementing the, actually do like a diagram on how to implement the protocol and what to expect with healing symptoms. Okay. I actually talk about the diet and what the goal is, healing symptom descriptions, the negative effects of overfed yeast, which is no different from the negative effects of overfed viruses, overfed. I mean, I come from the standpoint of Candida, but all of it stands when you have an imbalance in your microbiome, which is basically viruses, which are not bad, but you have an imbalance in viral proteins. Yes, you're going to have different symptoms. The body's going to try to survive because the antibodies from the imbalances of your microbiome. So even though I come from the standpoint of Candida, this really is representative of everything in your microbiome. I just happen to focus on Candida. But that's why the evolution of the Jilly Juice exists, because it says, okay, now you have to understand your microbiome. You have to understand really, you shouldn't be on a diet, but you have to understand what foods do and what they represent, and why I talked about earlier about the spices, okay, which are antibiotic. And so I put a list of all the different healing symptoms and all that stuff. And scheduling intake amounts, okay? Waterfalls, I talk about waterfalls as well. The taste, salty, metallic, tang, your strange taste. You know, we made some correlation. Talk about constipation, blood during the protocol. I mean, I go into undigested versus pre-digested. Addictions, talk about addictions, poop and sleep, how they're kind of related. Kidney water versus recipe / gut. I talk about cruciferous vegetables for those who have been told to avoid. Healing symptoms, so why this is not dangerous. Pain is healing, future triggers revisited. Using Western medicine while on the protocol, I'll talk about that. Mucus. I don't go into too much on the mucus because I go more into the mucus in this book than I do in here. So here I kind of give you an introduction to mucus and why it's necessary, especially when you're releasing. But then here I give you that mucus has the antibodies, the immunoglobulin, okay, and how antibodies kill you. So sex on the protocol, weeding off of drugs if that is your intention, smoking addictions and my protocol. I talk about why this protocol works for some and not for others. And then your digestive system and how it's supposed to work. And then and I talk about, you know, parasites as a bad thing, but parasites are not bad. We didn't know that, but this is the introduction. I talk about purging out psychological trauma. What are the unintended benefits? Amalgam fillings, how you really shouldn't take them out. And then talk about the diet and everything in here and why I had the diet the way it was, but then we're not really doing the diet. Fruits and vegetables, you know, raw seeds, raw nuts, good oils, organic versus GMO. Fermented foods, this is not sauerkraut, no fermented vinegar or milk or water only. Dangers of other fermented fruits and vinegars because of all the different sugars and everything. And then there's like about eels and nematodes and like, was it vinegar, apple cider vinegar stuff. And talk about proteins and salt. And I mean, there's so much to it. Disease is not random, protocol details. It's about human body systems, homeostasis, balance. I mean, there's just so much to this that you really can't throw this away. And then also too, I talk about Rh factors and blood types and antigen, and then yeah, and then but I don't go into too much about the antibodies so much. But that's, and so autophagy, I mean, and this is, half of this book is the Jilly Juice protocol from my perspective from a couple years ago, minus all of the newest research, which is really this is like an addendum to that. And then I have what I answered to the Ohio Attorney General. And then there's testimonies in here. Okay? And so body elements, the role of salt, balancing force salt within the periodic tables, human body systems and homeostasis, protocol details, disease is not random, the innate and the adaptive immune system, types of external factors creating disease, leaky gut, fungus, chemtrails, chemicals, viruses causing mutations, the questionable efficacy of pills, powders, and supplements, fallacies of antibiotics and binders, circumventing the immune system via injections, removal of pathogens, blood type and Rh factor, autophagy, hormone disruptions, the aging process, cell regeneration at an expeditious rate, regrowing limbs and organs. And so I really pain and regrowth. And so, you know, I really go into, I mean, no, this is something that you should have too. This really should, both of these together would be a perfect understanding. And even though there's some missing information based upon my current thought process, I'm going to have a third book that's going to then tie everything up. So both of these are really necessary to have, okay? Because what's not answered in here would most likely be answered in here, especially if you have practices like getting B12 injections, understanding organ regeneration, limb regeneration. Because I don't go into too much over here because, you know, if you're going to do the Jilly Juice and you're missing organs and limbs, you're going to feel pain. And if you think pain is bad, then you shouldn't be doing Jilly Juice. So already that's going to take care of whatever missing organs and limbs and amputations and all that stuff. And so I really did not give this enough credit because I was trying to make it more mainstream. And so that's why the evolution came about, because this is more mainstream. This is definitely in your face. Your lifespan is controlled. I mean, I put it pretty much plain as day. This is for the extreme conspiracy people that know how, and I'm like, now I'm back to this. Now, as far as there is anti-vax in here, I'm sure. Let me see, what page is the anti-vax? But I talk about more of the adjuvants more than the antibodies. Oh, circumventing your immune system via injection. That's right. I don't really say anti-vax. I wasn't trying to trip up anyone. But I do definitely talk about circumventing the immune system via injections. Okay? And so it's talked about natural killer cells. So I'm definitely anti-vax in this book. All right? And then this book takes more of a middle ground. So that way I can appeal to the mainstream. So if you have people that are on the fence about stuff, they're more mainstream, pro-vaxxer, this is probably more up to their speed. When you have someone that's a freaking conspiracy theorist that was like me way back when and right now, this is definitely the book, and you merge these together, you're going to get a balance of both worlds. So, but it's completely up to you, because I mean, you might have a lot of questions that are not going to get answered in this book as far as your current practices, but they will definitely be answered in this book. Okay? So it's definitely very interesting, revisiting what I wrote before, which I know there's a lot of run-on sentences. I sound like I'm just talking versus really trying to formulate a sentence, which I do much better here, but it's the evolution. I was like just getting my ideas out in this book. In this book, I'm really trying to give you guys like real well thought out substantiation, not so much of like throwing up info. All right, so, and then my next book, which I'm going to write sometime between now and 2021, is going to then tie up any loose ends that are not answered here or here. Okay, so, you know, you can't miss at all when it comes to Jilly Juice if you just understand all the science behind it, and you got to deal with pain, and you got to eat food, and you do the best you can to handle the evolution and adaptation. Okay, bye.